What if everything you're trying so hard to control is exactly what's keeping you from receiving what you want the most? Think about the way you cling to things, your plans, the people who don't really fit, the emotions you refuse to let go of, the idea that if you don't act now, everything will fall apart. You've confused motion with direction, effort with purpose, struggle with courage. And maybe you don't realize it, but in that constant tension of trying to hold everything together, something is slipping through your fingers. Something that, the more you chase it, the further it seems to run. You look ahead searching for signs, you push doors that won't open, you force connections that are clearly fading. And deep down, it feels like the more you do, the less you have. Like the universe is messing with you. Like the world is deliberately working against you. But what if it's not about doing more? What if the answer isn't in pushing harder, but in letting go? You've been told that surrendering is weakness, that letting go means failure, that not insisting means giving up. But no one warned you that holding on too tightly can destroy you, that when control turns into obsession, you stop living and start resisting. And resisting is exhausting. It's a constant war with reality. It's telling life, not like this, I know better. But do you really? Be honest. How many times have you forced a situation just to end up feeling empty? How many times did you plan everything down to the last detail, only for life to wipe the table clean without asking? How many times did love show up the moment you stopped searching? How many times did peace find you when you finally stopped needing it? Alan Watts used to say that life isn't a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. That the very act of clinging is what pushes away what we crave most. Because when you squeeze sand in your hand, it slips out faster. When you try to hold on to water, it runs. You're not here to control the river. You're here to learn how to swim with its current. And yet you keep thinking that the more you think, the clearer it'll all get. That the harder you work, the closer you'll be. That the more you suffer, the more you deserve. But there's something deeply flawed in that logic. Because life doesn't reward the one who struggles the most. It rewards the one who understands. And understanding requires silence, space, humility, things you can't access when you're too busy trying to master everything. Have you noticed how the most genuine moments come without warning? How the best conversations happen when no one's trying to impress anyone? How the brightest days are the ones you didn't plan? There's a quiet wisdom in the spontaneous. A rare beauty in what simply unfolds. And you're missing it because you're too caught up trying to force things to be the way you think they should be. This isn't about being passive. It's not about crossing your arms and waiting for the world to do you favors. It's about recognizing a deeper rhythm, one you can't manipulate, only follow. And that takes letting go. Letting go of what's already dead. Letting go before the rope cuts through your hands. Making space in the places where you still insist on staying, even when there's nothing left there for you. Maybe it's the emptiness that scares you, the silence that follows after release. Maybe you think that if you stop insisting, everything will fall apart. But look closely. What collapses when you stop forcing it was never really yours to begin with. And what stays when you stop pushing, that belongs to you. Because you didn't have to grip it. You didn't have to fight. It just was. Natural. When you let go, something inside you reorganizes. It's not a sign of defeat, it's a sign of trust. It's looking life in the eye and saying, okay, show me what I actually need, not what I want out of fear. And when you do that, something unexpected happens. You start to receive more. Not because you're doing something different, but because you finally stopped blocking the flow. Receiving isn't about deserving. It's the result of being aligned. And being aligned means being relaxed. Not waiting. Not demanding. It means being available. Being at peace with what comes and with what goes. Because you understand that everything has a cycle. And you can't rush what's not ready or hold on to what has already run its course. The paradox is simple. The more you let go, the freer you become. The freer you are, the more space you have. And the more space you have, the more life can flow in. It's simple, but it's not easy. Because letting go requires trust. It requires loss. And sometimes it hurts. It hurts to lose a version of yourself you thought was essential. It hurts to stop fighting for something that gave you identity. It hurts to admit that, sometimes, you were the one in your own way. But there's peace on the other side of release. A kind of clarity you can't bargain for. A lightness that lets you see beyond the effort. And when you feel it, when you finally understand that you don't have to control everything for things to happen, you breathe differently. You speak differently. You walk differently. You no longer beg, you invite. You no longer push, you flow. You no longer chase, you attract. And in that moment, right there, in that quiet space where the ego stops yelling, something real begins. Not what you imagined. Not what you were promised. Something much quieter, but infinitely more you. So yes, maybe letting go is the bravest thing you'll ever do. Because it puts you face to face with yourself, with your fears, with your attachments, with the beliefs you've clung to for too long. And it forces you to trust, not in what you know, not in what you control, but in the dance of life itself. Because as Watts used to say, you are not separate from it. You are it. And when you remember that, there's nothing left to chase. Just the breath. Just the stillness. Just the presence. And the quiet readiness to receive, not because you deserve it, but because now you're finally open. Letting go isn't some sudden, dramatic act. It's a slow, quiet, almost invisible process. Sometimes, you don't even realize it's happening until one day, it just doesn't hurt anymore. You're no longer waiting. That thought that used to haunt you in the middle of the night? It doesn't show up anymore. Something inside you let go, and without even noticing, you allowed it. But letting go isn't just about no longer thinking about someone or something. It goes deeper than that. It's giving up the illusion of control, that constant need to know what's next, to predict the future so you can feel safe. It's learning to let uncertainty be there without letting it paralyze you. And in a world that measures everything, plans everything, compares everything, that's a radical thing to do. You were taught to set goals, to stay focused, to make lists. You were told that if you're not building something, you're wasting your time. That if you don't fight for what you want, no one else will give it to you. But no one really talks about the weight of living in constant pursuit. No one tells you how quietly exhausting it is to feel like every day is a battle you have to win. You've lived that way for a long time. Filling up your schedule, your mind, your heart. Chasing something, someone, maybe even yourself. Telling yourself that once you get that one thing, then you'll finally breathe. But it comes, and it's not enough. Or it doesn't come, and you start thinking something's wrong with you. And the cycle just keeps spinning while you wear yourself down. But what if nothing's wrong with you? What if you're just playing by rules that don't match your soul? Rules designed to keep you busy, not to set you free. Rules that glorify hustle but ignore meaning. That praise persistence but forget peace. That reward holding on, but never the bravery it takes to let go. Alan Watts once talked about the dance of the universe. He said life isn't a path leading somewhere. It's music, meant to be danced now. But what happens when, in the middle of that dance, you're too focused on your next step to feel the rhythm? You stumble. You disconnect. You lose the joy. Letting go is coming back into rhythm. It's stopping the count and starting to feel the steps. And no, letting go doesn't mean giving up or abandoning your dreams. It means having the wisdom to know when to act and when to trust. That not everything depends on your effort. That some things aren't meant to be chased, they're meant to be received. And what's truly meant for you will find you. No begging, no forcing, no yelling at the universe. But to receive, your hands need to be empty. And right now, yours are full. Full of expectations, of fear, of unresolved pasts and futures that don't exist yet. Full of noise in your mind and urgency in your emotions. Full of what should have been, but never was. Of what you wanted it to be, but it just wasn't. And in the meantime, what's real passes you by. Because there's no space. You may not realize it, but every time you try to force something, you're telling the universe you don't trust it. That you believe if you don't do it, no one will. If you don't push, nothing will move. That kind of controlling energy suffocates, both inside and out. It doesn't just drain you, it drives away everything that flows naturally. Nothing wants to be forced. No dream wants to be chased to death. No connection wants to be held together by fear. Look at the things in your life that came with ease. The ones you didn't have to chase or overthink. The ones that happened without your planning, without fully understanding them, without you having to earn them the way the world told you to. That's what's real. That's what aligns with who you are, not who you're trying to be. And that's what shows up when you stop clinging. Of course, it's hard. Letting go isn't just about releasing external things. It's also letting go of parts of you. Versions of yourself you built to be accepted, to be loved, to be respected. Masks you wore for so long that you mistook them for your real face. And when those masks start to fall, it's scary. It feels like you're losing yourself, like you're disappearing. But the truth is, you're remembering. Letting go is stripping down to the real you. It's standing there with only what's essential. Saying, this is who I am, no armor, no noise, no decoration. And from that place, whatever comes into your life will be real. Because it'll be coming to you, not the persona you built. And you'll see more clearly too. Because you won't be trying to fit in, to convince, to impress. You'll just be being. And being is the most powerful form of receiving. When you are, without effort, everything that's vibrating at your same frequency starts finding you. You don't have to run. You don't have to shout. You don't even have to explain. It just shows up. Because now you're open. Because now there's room. Because now you're not full of things that no longer serve you. That's the most beautiful paradox of letting go. You don't lose what's truly yours. What falls away when you stop holding on was never meant to stay. What remains, what stays without you chasing it, that's what belongs. And you don't have to control it. You just recognize it when it arrives. So what if you stopped resisting, right now? What if you gave yourself permission to trust, even if you don't understand? What if this is the moment you finally stop? Not because you're tired, but because you understand. You understand that it's not about reaching anymore. It's about allowing. It's not about searching, it's about opening. It's not about achieving more, it's about living lighter. And lightness isn't indifference. It's wisdom. It's knowing you've walked far enough to realize that the most essential things can't be chased, they're found. And the most important ones? They never come from pressure. They arrive when you're ready, not when you demand it. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready now. Not because everything's figured out, but because you're finally willing to let go. And that quiet, personal, invisible act is the beginning of everything new that's about to come your way. There's a moment, so subtle you almost miss it, when you stop fighting. It doesn't sound like a scream, and it doesn't feel like a big victory. It's just a breath. A pause between your chest and the silence. A small opening. A quiet second where, without really knowing why, you stop caring so much about winning. Or convincing. Or running. You just want to be. Just breathe. Just watch life keep happening, with or without your effort. And then something clicks. Not in your mind, but in your body. In your soul. In that deeper part of you that's been tired for a long time. Tired of clenching your fists while pretending you're fine. That's when real change begins. When you find yourself looking at what once hurt you, and it doesn't close up your chest anymore. When you hear the name of someone you once loved, and nothing inside you shatters. When you face your past mistakes with softness instead of shame. When you stop needing to defend your story so much, because you finally understand, it was never about being right. It was about learning to let go. Letting go isn't something violent. It's not tearing your soul apart. It's a process. Sometimes it's a firm decision. Other times it's a slow retreat. Sometimes it feels like grief. Other times, like peace. But no matter how it shows up, it always sets you free. Because letting go doesn't mean losing. It means trusting that there's something more waiting beyond what you can see right now. Something you might not have words for yet, but that's already making its way to you the moment you stop trying to control everything. Life isn't interested in your plans. It doesn't follow your calendar or match your expectations. It has its own logic, its own rhythm, its own poetry. And the sooner you accept that, the easier it becomes to dance with it instead of fighting it. Because nothing drains you more than battling what already is. And you know this. You felt it. You've lived it. You know how much it hurts to resist the obvious. You know how heavy it is to hold on to something that's already falling. Sometimes, The bravest thing you can do is stop. Not to give up, but to recognize you've done all you could. That pushing further isn't persistence, it's self-punishment. That maybe now, you're not meant to keep pushing, but to release. And you have no idea how much beauty is waiting on the other side of that choice. You don't know how much clarity is hiding behind the fear. How much lightness begins to show the moment you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. At first, it might all feel like emptiness. As if letting go also meant letting go of yourself. Like a part of you has lost its job, its voice, its direction. But don't worry. That emptiness isn't a punishment. It's sacred. It's the space that makes room for something new to enter. And the new doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it shows up like a sunrise, quiet, steady, impossible to stop. And you'll feel it. You'll feel it when you start enjoying things without guilt. When you learn to say no without explaining yourself. When you stop begging for attention, love, or validation. When you look at your own reflection and don't need to prove anything anymore. When you finally realize nothing truly worth having is built on fear, or urgency, or scarcity. Everything that really transforms us comes from fullness, from stillness, from peace. That's the most beautiful irony of all. When you let go of what you thought you needed, you finally become who you truly are. When you stop chasing, you begin to find. When you stop talking so much, you finally hear, not others, but yourself. The voice that's always been there, drowned out by other people's expectations and promises that were never yours. That quiet, steady voice. That ancient knowing. That deep truth that doesn't need applause or explanation. And you'll realize something else, too. Life never owed you anything. Everything that happened, even the painful parts, had a purpose. Not to punish you, but to wake you up. To crack open the armor. To teach you that control is just an illusion, and freedom begins the moment you stop running after the impossible. When you finally accept that the only thing that's real is what's happening right here, right now, as you breathe. And from that new awareness, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you see it differently. You stop demanding. You start choosing. You stop clinging. You start sharing. You stop consuming moments and start living them. Because now, finally, you're present. You're available for life, not as you thought it should be, but as it actually is. And that's when things start showing up. Not the things you begged for out of desperation, but the things that are actually good for you. People who come into your life with no promises, but bring peace. Opportunities you weren't chasing, but somehow fit perfectly. Paths you hadn't seen before, but now feel safe to explore. All of that starts unfolding when you finally empty yourself. When you finally make space. When you're no longer filled with urgency or trapped inside old versions of who you used to be. Abundance isn't about having more. It's about needing less. It's feeling so at peace with what you have that anything extra is just a bonus, not your identity. It's knowing you're whole, even in the middle of chaos. It's realizing that everything essential is already living inside you, and everything else is just scenery. When you get that, you stop asking from lack and start thanking from presence. And that presence, that quiet connection with your own self, is the most valuable thing you can reclaim. Because that's where everything begins to grow. Not from pressure, but from alignment. Not from fear, but from love. Not from need, but from choice. Look at your life with compassion. Look at everything you've made it through. All the times you broke, got lost, started over without knowing how. And still, you're here. Still going. Still learning to let go. Still learning to trust. Still learning how to live without so much armor, without so many demands. Learning, most of all, how to receive without guilt. How to open your arms with no conditions. How to say, yes, I'm ready, not because everything's under control, but because you've finally accepted it never really was. And that doesn't scare you anymore. It sets you free. So come back to the first question. What if everything you're trying to control is the very thing keeping you from receiving what you want most? Maybe the answer's already inside you. Maybe it's been there all along, but you were too busy trying to make life match your plans. Now you know that's not the point. Now you understand, the real things arrive when there's space. When there's quiet. when there's surrender. So let it go. All of it. What you weren't. What you lost. What never came. What hurt. What they told you had to be. Let go of the image, the rush, the script. And stay with yourself. Still present. Open. Because now, finally, you're ready to receive.